My name is Paul Grech, and I am a helicopter pilot. I was born and raised in London, Ontario, and my story is about chasing a boyhood dream and being amazed about exactly where that dream can take you. Now, my first career, I was a banker, and I got very good at yelling to the tune of $350 million worth of bonds a day. In 1999, exchange floors around the world began to go electronic, and I lost my job in London, England. I moved home and traded on the Montreal Exchange, and a year later, I once again lost my job. And in that moment, I remembered when I was a boy living in Pond Mills, I remembered I wanted to fly. And I asked myself a simple $1 million question. If I had $1 million, what job would I do? Now, why choppers? Well, my favorite show growing up was Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. It was a wildlife show in Africa, and I loved the remote land, the wildlife, the biologists working on the animals. But more importantly, above all things in that show, I loved the chopper scenes. Africa was this mysterious wild land, far removed from Pond Mills in London, Ontario, and it created in me a desire for adventure to parts of the world that were tough and rough and rugged. Parts of the world where few people would dare to visit, never mind try to live there for over 6 years. And so after losing my job twice and asking myself my $1 million question, in January of 2001, I took my first chopper lesson. By July of that year, I was a Transport Canada commercially rated helicopter pilot. So I had accomplished my dream. Now what? 5 years into life as a chopper pilot, I got sent to the Canadian Western Arctic. I began to live my favorite show growing up as a kid. Except instead of the heat and the deserts and the dry lands of Africa, I was in the frozen tundra of the Beaufort Delta. Now here is London, Ontario, and here is the Beaufort Delta. Well, remember that dream of rough and tough and rugged? Well, be very careful what you wish for. I had found the Canadian version of Africa. Ice roads, frozen tundra, 400 kilometers north of the Arctic Circle. The town where I lived was Inuvik in the Northwest Territories, and it boasts one of the greatest deltas of the world. There are no lions or tigers or elephants. Instead, I saw bears, caribou, muskox, and whales. The geography consists of the waterway of the Great Mackenzie River and the Beaufort Sea. The landscape boasts the Richardson Mountains, the Arctic Plains, and a treeless tundra. Now, winter is 8 months long, dipping to minus 50 degrees Celsius. Summer, barely 6 weeks. My first flying mission was to Husky Lakes, a small lake south of Tuktoyaktuk. In the fall, beluga whales come in from the Beaufort Sea feeding on the herring, and they swim through a maze of rivers and streams and get trapped in the ice at Husky Lakes. I flew in biologists there to monitor the harvest of the whales by the local people, turning this into traditional food called muktuk. Now picture this, a boy from London, Ontario, on final approach on his chopper. It was nothing like I had ever seen. This indeed was the Canadian version of Mutual of Omaha's Wild Kingdom. I flew biologists doing studies on the amazing polar bear. These creatures spend their lives on the ice, but due to global warming, they are being pushed off the ice, forced south to find different food sources where they should typically be. Now the amazing grizzly bear, hanging and basking in the valleys of Sheep Creek, again due to climate change, find themselves pushing north due to longer summers and shorter winters in the Arctic. They themselves are too pushing themselves north, chasing their food supplies. And so, like most mild-mannered mammals, these bears meet but don't fight. They mate. What else are you going to do in the middle of the Arctic, I ask? Climate change has created a new species of bear, a hybrid bear called the polar grizz. So the first part of my dream was to learn to fly choppers. But the real amazing part to it was where that dream took me. I can still feel the tingle on my neck from the moment I saw my first northern lights in the Arctic sky. The wildlife I saw wasn't in a television set anymore. It was just outside my chopper, just on the other side of a camera lens, often within arm's reach as the biologist worked on an animal. And I ask you, where will your dream take you? The people I met, thriving, not just surviving. I got once sent a Starbucks card for my birthday and called the person up and said, "Why would you send me a Starbucks card to the Arctic?" "What do you mean?" they said. "Where do you get your coffee?" And again, I ask you, where will your dream take you? The unique features of remote towns like this igloo church, built over 60 years ago and still standing, built by a priest with no construction or architect experience, just a dream, a vision, and a desire. And again, I ask you, where will your dream take you? And so here I stand on the ice in the bay of Uluaktak in July. And I ask to you, what is your $1,000,000 question? I am Paul Grech, and I am a helicopter pilot. Thank you.